Welcome back to another We Ourselves video. As a way to commemorate the introduction of Thrawn into the Rebels animated series on this day, on September 24th, 2016, I think now is as good a time as any to finally talk about Thrawn, my experience with him as a Star Wars Expanded Universe fan, and how I think this character has been changed subtly in some ways and not so subtly in other ways from the original creation by Timothy Zahn. In May of 1991, Random House published a book that would change my view of the Star Wars landscape forever. That month, they published Timothy Zahn's Star Wars: Heir to the Empire. It would be the first of the novels to feature a new, super capable villain named Grand Admiral Thrawn. There were other books in the Star Wars Expanded Universe, including the novelization of the first Star Wars movie, but when Heir to the Empire came out, my love for the expanding Star Wars universe went into overdrive. Not only did this novel take a key moment from Return of the Jedi, it also expanded and speculated on that last battle over Endor, wherein the rebellion won a decisive victory against the Empire. Luke defeats Vader, rejects the Emperor's offer, and becomes a true Jedi. Vader redeemed himself by saving his son, but at the cost of his own life. Outside that climatic battle for the fate of the universe, the actual Star Wars raged on with the rebellion destroying the second Death Star. Now came a book with a villain whose superior mind and battle skills could have changed the tide of that fateful war. Grand Admiral Thrawn, exiled to the outer regions of the galaxy by the Emperor, was not on hand to rally the Imperial Navy and pull victory from defeat. That storyline alone would have been enough to capture my imagination, but Zahn provided something that Luke, Han, and the other Rebel heroes outside of Lando Calrissian could never offer me. You see, according to Thrawn, he was exiled by the Emperor because of his skin and eye color. Despite his admitted genius at combat, which the Emperor acknowledged by elevating Thrawn in a secret ceremony to the rank of Grand Admiral, Thrawn had blue skin and red eyes, something he couldn't hide. Go figure, the most evil being in the universe was a bigot too. As a man of color, I was well aware of the pitfalls of being a particular color. I personally experienced and saw up close how, despite being talented and skilled, I, my brothers, and friends of color saw those skills set aside while others moved ahead. For the first time, Star Wars provided a personal entryway into the Star Wars universe, that of a person of color being sidelined because of physical characteristics he couldn't change. Being the victim of bigotry while still excellent and working that much harder to prove himself was an aspect of character that the usual Star Wars heroes never faced. Though an alien, Thrawn was human or humanoid except for his skin and eye color, and subsequent books would reveal his species was very compatible with regular humans. I'm thinking of the Jaina Solo character dating a member of the Chiss race. The fact that Zahn's book was particularly popular with Star Wars fans of all colors attests to the author's ability to make this aspect of the character organic to the story in a way that didn't offend or trigger anyone. The Thrawn that Timothy Zahn introduced became a much beloved villain and character in the Star Wars EU, even to this day, leading Disney and Lucasfilms to redo Thrawn's story and introduce the character in the Rebels animated series. I was all for this, watching Rebels and eagerly purchasing the new books done by Timothy Zahn, but it was reading the new books, in particular Star Wars Thrawn, the first of the new Thrawn books, released in May of 2017, that I slowly began to realize that the current Thrawn was not the one introduced to fans all those years ago. The aspect of the character that spoke the most to me as a young black man had been retconned by Disney. In this video, I'll go over the crucial changes in Thrawn's character and the clear, ominous signal that it sends to someone like me. It's a signal that undermines Disney's claim of inclusion, diversity, and equity. And the worst part is Disney didn't have to change this aspect of Thrawn's story. The Emperor Palpatine, the most evil man in the universe, was also a bigot. That shouldn't come as any surprise to anybody. Throughout history, the most evil people were also extreme bigots. The two character traits go hand in hand. As such, Thrawn, with his red eyes and deep blue skin, wasn't acceptable around the other Imperial officers. When we consider that the first 3 original trilogy movies never showed any non-white Imperials, let alone any female Imperials, it was clear what form the Emperor's bigotry took. Now, the Star Wars novels did expand the cast of Imperial characters to include memorable female officers and eventually important black Imperial officers. Thrawn's introduction to Star Wars Rebels animated series was a tremendous event. But I sensed something different about the character. My acceptance of the difference in Thrawn didn't detract from my enjoyment of the series. However, when Timothy Zahn released his new novels, the changes in the iconic villain became all the more apparent. I have to back up a little because my first encounter with the new Thrawn began in the prequel novels. Disney wanted and needed to fill in Thrawn's background, but I also noticed they used these novels to introduce or retcon the history of the Star Wars universe, particularly the history of the Outer Rim sections. The Thrawn that Anakin, Tarkin, and Darth Vader met seemed different, less lethal in some ways than the original incarnation of the character. I couldn't be precise at that point, but only after the first new Thrawn trilogy was released did I begin to see what I believe was a fundamental change in the character. Reading the new novels provided me with examples of how the new Thrawn was far less lethal and unpredictable. Even scenes in the Rebels show illustrated this new approach. For example, in The Heir to the Empire, Thrawn questions a tractor beam operator and crewman's senior officer after Luke Skywalker is able to escape in his X-Wing. At the end of Thrawn's questioning, the Grand Admiral has his Nogri assassin execute the senior officer by decapitation. The action was brutal, efficient, and well-reasoned. It also showed that Thrawn was capable of anything to teach a lesson. The Thrawn in the new novels don't do anything this shocking. Even more, a very similar scene was given to Tarkin in the Rebels series, rather than Thrawn. When Tarkin arrives on Lothal to take over operations, he has the Grand Inquisitor decapitate 2 senior Imperials. I saw the rationale in the story, but we already know Tarkin is evil and ruthless. Even more, his storyline presented plenty of examples of his willingness to do anything to win an engagement. How much more effective would it have been if Thrawn did something similar instead? It would have been in keeping with his initial introduction and also gone a long way to show his ruthlessness. Now, many will point out at this point that Thrawn had a production worker who worked for the Rebels personally test a sabotaged hover bike. In the end, the worker dies when the compromised bike explodes literally under him. I'll admit that scene serves the same purpose, but that action was directed at Thrawn's enemies, not the people under him. That tense scene aside, Thrawn never carried a consistent air of menace the same way Tarkin did in every scene. Plus, the biker scene denied us the chance to see Rook, the Nogri assassin, in action. Sure, Rook is still a capable hunter, but like Thrawn, he never seemed as deadly as he did in the original books. And before you say this show is for kids, I remind you that Tarkin had 2 people decapitated by lightsaber. But I've delayed long enough in covering the most disappointing change to the character and the Star Wars universe. Apparently, Disney thinks bigotry related to one's skin color should never be mentioned. Why they took this route, I can't say. Are they afraid it will trigger fans and cause controversy? I can't accept that given that Thrawn was and still is a beloved villain. Again, fans of all colors liked him and demanded he be introduced in the Mandalorian series. Perhaps Disney thought color bigotry wasn't as important as other forms of discrimination, or they felt it no longer was a problem in modern society. I can tell you that's not the case. Contrary to what some people want to believe, bigotry based on one's skin color is still an important factor in the lives of people of color. Just as I found the first overt statement of color bigotry in Star Wars novels refreshing, modern readers of color would also find that part of the original storyline reflected their real world. In Heir to the Empire, Thrawn's anger over his banishment to the outer sectors because of his physical appearance, despite his superior skill sets, was part of his characterization and his motivation to prove himself. The inner knowledge that you are just as capable as others, yet hindered because of how you look, is a very powerful motivator in real life. Also, the Emperor was a bigot. It was stated outright that only humans, and at that time that meant white males only, could serve in leadership roles. All non-human species were seen as little more than slave labor for the Empire. I find it strange that in our age of diversity and the push for inclusion, these simple story elements were seen as problematic. Somehow, in our effort to move forward, we've grown incapable of facing the very things we claim to fight. In the new novels, bigotry on the part of the Emperor is replaced by class snobbery and privilege. Thrawn wasn't sent to the Outer Rim because he was different. No, he was sent there because he wasn't from the core worlds, nor from a powerful/wealthy family. Before anyone claims that it's understandable that non-humans would suffer because they aren't from core worlds, Thrawn's given a personal aide, Cadet Vanto, who is coded as a white human male. And of course, since Vanto is from the Outer Rim planet, he's discriminated against just like Thrawn. You see, in the new Disney canon, it has nothing to do with the color of Thrawn's skin or the color of Thrawn's eyes. It's simply class snobbery. Why Disney decided this change was better, I cannot say. Now, someone reading the new books may overlook that fact, or if made aware of it, deny it's true. I happen to listen to the audiobooks as well as read the novels. The voiceover talent is none other than Mark Thompson. For those who have listened to the Star Wars audiobooks over the years, you'll know that Mark Thompson is the most recognized voice for the audiobook versions. He's recorded more Star Wars audiobooks than any other voice talent. I like to compare him to James Marsters, who lent his voice talents to the Harry Dresden audiobooks, and Jim Dale, who recorded all the Harry Potter audiobooks. Mr. Thompson's voice has become synonymous with the Star Wars audio dramas. In the new Thrawn novels, Mr. Thompson uses a southern white male voice for Thrawn's personal assistant, Cadet First Class Eli Vanto. There's no way he would have done that without the audiobook producers knowing and agreeing. Even more, whenever there are other humans from an Outer Rim world, he adopts a different but similar southern accent for them. Now, as someone born and raised in the South, the portrayal of Outer Rim world residents as southern, country, and less refined is actually problematic to me. In our age of inclusivity, how does Disney think this is okay? But back to my main point. Mr. Thompson's recordings clearly code Cadet First Class Eli Vanto as a white male with a southern drawl. While some may not see the problem in switching to class discrimination over old-fashioned bigotry, as a person of color, the loss of an element that addressed an important aspect of my actual life is sad and disappointing. As for the Emperor, not only isn't he a bigot now, he doesn't even seem interested in the class warfare and inner-world politics that plague his imperial forces. He simply commands something be done and then leaves the stage to allow the underlings to handle everything. Remember, in the original Thrawn trilogy, the Emperor was fully aware of the imperial politics he created when it came to non-humans, and so he elevated Thrawn in a secret ceremony. And please note, even under Disney, the First Order may have diverse troops and officers, but even they don't have alien species among their ranks. Only the rebels represent the true Rainbow Coalition of races and species. The old Empire, before Disney, before the dark times, didn't hide the fact that it was xenophobic. That's why viewers of the recent Obi-Wan series found it odd that this character would be so pro-Empire. Fans of the original movies and the expanded universe books understood what the Empire and its politics represented versus what the Rebel Alliance represented. Maybe that's why Thrawn fascinated us. He's an obvious alien in an organization that despised aliens. We got it. We all know the most iconic aspect of Thrawn's character is his ability to analyze the artwork of different cultures and species and make profound and sometimes deeply intuitive conclusions about how they will react primarily in warfare situations. This ability extends to observing the smallest detail in everything, thus giving Thrawn a tactical advantage and understanding that eludes most beings. His conclusions weren't always correct, or they aren't now because Disney has morphed Thrawn's ability so that he's presented as being on the spectrum. This new interpretation has Thrawn ignorant of people's political motivations, consequences, and socially awkward and non-battle situations. I fundamentally disagree with this new take on Thrawn by Disney. The Thrawn of the original book series thoroughly understood people's motivations. Without that understanding of motivations, there was no way he could have continued the subjugation of the Noghri people by brutally using their system of honor and obligation as well as intra-clan and dynast politics. That Thrawn skillfully handled a powerful yet mentally challenged Jedi Master clone into doing his bidding. Instead, the new Thrawn has been adjusted to a place of social awkwardness and a lack of political understanding. As someone who worked with special education students, I know that it's often possible for a person to have a profound ability or talent in some area while not possessing common social interaction skills. Often these individuals have transitional services and trained professionals for that very purpose. Admiral Orlani, the former Skywalker Thalius, Thrawn's adoptive brother Thras, and even Arenda Price of Lothal all served this role in the new novels, helping Thrawn to fit into and navigate regular society. I can fully understand the desire for this type of inclusion, and again, as somebody who worked with special education students, I actually applaud it. But I truly feel that Disney mishandled the way they went about doing it, and they fundamentally changed a very popular character in the Star Wars mythology. Thrawn's skill with art appreciation, analyzation, and applying that to a species and a culture's way of thinking wholeheartedly applies to that species' politics. His ability to analyze art had to begin with his own Chiss culture, yet somehow he can't fathom Chiss politics nor the political motivations of those around him. After all,
art is simply politics, sweeter tongue.
Thank you, Brother Day. Warfare is the result or the extension of politics, failed or not. How could Thrawn not understand Chiss politics, let alone the political motivations of other cultures, if he can predict their way of thinking, knowing, and expressing themselves through their art? A lot of effort went into this retcon of Thrawn, but I don't accept it. The more they emphasized Thrawn's lack of political awareness in the books, the more I was taking out of the narratives. This change, along with the loss of the bigotry against Thrawn, makes him a less nuanced character in my opinion. Rather than continue with the organic original character created by Timothy Zahn, this Thrawn feels like the result of endless committee meetings and misguided corporate inclusion goals. Back when I attended film school, we had a very good screenwriting professor who warned us new screenwriters not to write a 300-page script and try to sell that. His point was, if a studio did purchase your script, the first thing a producer would do was hire another screenwriter to chop it down to a manageable size. His admonition to us was it's better for us to do the surgery ourselves, since it's our story and characters, rather than let someone else who doesn't care about our creation butcher it. I have to wonder if Timothy Zahn faced a similar dilemma when Disney finally contacted him and the other Star Wars writers with their new plan for the Star Wars universe. He's a professional. This is what he does, and Thrawn was his baby. I can't help but feel he decided it was better for him to make the changes to Thrawn rather than hand the scalpel to Disney Star Wars and Lucasfilm and let them perform the operation. So those are my thoughts on Grand Admiral Thrawn. Thanks for watching, and please like, subscribe, and share this video if you haven't. And as always, I will see you in the next video.